Aloha and welcome to The Art of Life. I'm your host, Willow Chang Alion. We broadcast live every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. here from the heart of downtown at Pioneer Plaza. This show is dedicated to highlighting individuals and pursuits which really enrich the art of life, not limited to Hawaii, but really with a global perspective. I'm so thrilled to have today, well, let's be frank, my kumu or my guru of Butoh, artist, dancer, innovator, Lori Ohtani in the house. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So we like to just dive right into things here because our time is limited. We have the luxury of this uninterrupted, for the most part, discussion, but there's a lot of nitty-gritty we want to get into. So I would like to ask you some questions first about your background, about how Lori came to be. I know that you do applied arts and mixed media and visual art, but many people also know you as a teacher, a mover, a dancer. Can you tell us a little bit about the essence of Lori? Things she would never say about herself. That's what you got me for.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, and basically, as far as the performing arts side, I've kind of fell into it. I was always curious about the movement forms and things, but I was very shy to put myself out there in front of people. And I started in movement with jazz dance classes and then modern dance. And then the Butoh came about where I saw a flyer. I was taking a modern dance class from Cheryl Flaherty, and I enjoyed her class, and she had a flyer that she was going to offer some classes on a movement form called Butoh. The photo looked very intriguing, so I went down and I saw the demo, and then I was just hooked after that. I just really loved the art form.
So it was pretty instantaneous for you.
Yeah, pretty instantaneous.
Dance seems to have that effect on people. It really does. A lot of people, when I hear their stories of origin, they'll fall into something, or they'll take a class, or they'll see a movie, and then once they try it, they're just kind of hooked for life, which is really, that's awesome. So I want to delve into Butoh. I hope I'm putting the emphasis properly.
Yeah.
Some people may be familiar with it, but we're just going to assume that most aren't, because sometimes it's fringe, even though it's become an international dance movement. Will you tell us about the origins of it?
Basically, the origins, the two co-founders were from Japan. They were highly influenced by a German dance form also called German Expressionism. They had studied or come in contact with a German Expressionist dancer named Mary Wigman. And I think she has that really famous piece.
Hexentanz.
Yeah. Very, very striking piece. And so during that time, Japan was going, basically through a very drastic change because of the war, the ending of the war, and a lot of Western influences sort of coming into their culture. So I think out of my research and for what I know and I've read through books, they basically wanted to find something that really expressed their culture or their roots. So they kind of, looked at, this source of inspiration from other dance forms, Western culture, and they kind of came up with something that kind of reflected, I think, them or the Japanese body. And basically, the form came about in, I would say maybe the late 40s, early 50s is when it kind of came into the, the eye of the, not mainstream, but in the art world.
A lot of times it's often paired as or labeled as a postmodern, or maybe a reaction or a response growing out of the advent of war, which was clearly a global thing, but Japan had its own involvement. Do you feel that that's fair, or do you think that was a reflection of that time period? Because now it seems to probably embrace many other identities and purposes, but do you think that it was a response, perhaps the experience as something as horrific as war is, no matter who's involved?
I think it was maybe a little part. I think, you know, like reading more about it and from, you know, opinions from different writers on who are like historians or expert on the history of Butoh. I think the bombings and the war were just maybe a small part of what influenced the art form.
Right.
I really think it had to do a lot with the two founders just really trying to find something that reflected maybe a blending of different forms or just taking like art or dance or movement to like a next level. Yeah, so I think it had to do with it, but not primarily. Yeah.
So we know that dance is very visual, so some people might think, how strange, you have these dancers on the show and you sit around the table, the oval table, and you discuss dance, but hey, we work with what we have. I think one of the things that's of importance is that dancers use many types of means to communicate, so it's not strictly their body, it's their music choices, the venues that they perform in, the quality of their movement, the essence of their movement, the visuals that they use, all those things. That being said, could you give our viewers an understanding of what type of movements people might see with Butoh? Because I think for those who have seen maybe limited exposure, they tend to think that it's very slow and people are white. So, and it embraces those elements as well. But could you give us just an idea for those who are not in the know?
Basically, it does, you know, incorporate a very slow, concentrated focus and movement. So that is one of the
hallmarks.
Yeah, the hallmarks of it, and also the white makeup. The reasoning for the white makeup usually is one of the things about Butoh is when you using the white makeup to paint your whole body, it's basically, it does take from the traditions of no theater where they're using the white makeup, but also it's to kind of take the personality away or just...
It just neutralizes things.
Neutralizes the whole being or the person. So you are truly starting from like a very blank state. Yeah. And it can, like, it's developed so much, and it's each individual choreographer, I think, brings their own personality, their own background, their own culture to the art forms. So it doesn't necessarily always is slow if you have a modern dance background or like yourself, a belly dance background. All that memory, that body memory, will all be incorporated into the form, which is really, really nice, I think.
Definitely. Yeah. I was even thinking that the white is kind of the absence of the blood. You restrict to some degree the color, and then we start to move past things like color, or you take on a form that is at times otherworldly, and yet it's so human. And that's, I think, the fascinating thing about this dance, is that it brings together and bridges so many different elements. Ooh la la. Okay, I actually made a list, because I'm pake, right on the back of like envelopes. That's what I do, save a tree. I wanted to ask you about the concept of impermanence. So that's something that is very heavily imbued in Asian philosophy and thought and religion. And clearly, being a Japanese art form would relate to that. Even the sakura, or the cherry blossom, this idea that we're here for just a small period of time, and that the only constant perhaps that we can rely on is change, that change is inevitable. How does Butoh address that idea or those concepts of impermanence?
I think basically the dancer is always trying to be in the very present moment. And really, when you're moving or when you're performing, you know, in the choreography or anything, you always want to, well, at least for myself, you always want to leave like a space where nothing is really predicted or predictable. So you're always open to that, what you call that impermanence or that moment for something else to blossom or happen. So I think it addresses it that way. And for me, when I do choreographed dances or do artwork, I don't necessarily like to repeat or the same dance all the time, or if it is repeated, it's always changed in some way because the location or the audience, everything changes.
Even the emotional landscape. I mean, if something is created with the intent to celebrate or commemorate, or you're dealing with an issue, and then you do it 6 months later, 3 weeks later, 5 years later, you're in a different heart and mind space. Your body has changed. You ate different things for breakfast. It's always going to be different. So I've always kind of thought it was odd where people seem very attached to this idea that when there's a choreography, you're literally doing the same dance over and over again, because I've always thought, what? What are you talking about? But that's very interesting. Let's see, I have my little list here. The body as a vessel. How, what would you say is the relationship? I mean, and these are all general terms, I realize that. But the body as a vessel, is it viewed as something to house the spirit? Is it viewed as just an instrument? How does Butoh approach the body in terms of dance? What is its definition or its idealized state?
I think for me, the idea of the idealized state would be trying to break down all the layers of yourself and going through, taking off all these layers, like, your work face, your family face, and just keep digging and digging until you get to, I guess, the source of who you really are, and basically really emptying out the body and keeping it completely open, so that way the next time you start, then new things start coming in.
You have an exercise that you have us as a prompt, and it's where we're on the floor and we're envisioning. There's so much envisioning of ideas and prompts, which I really love, because you're using the mind to create a physical sensation and a shape. And you have us envisioning receiving water and then rotating the body, we're on the floor here, and emptying out of the body. And there's always a balance of working both sides. And I love that idea of there's something very cleansing about that. I mean, that's just the feeling that I get. I'm sure it's different for everyone. And as an instructor, I'm always so pleased that you never tell us what to feel. You tell us what are the surroundings that we're supposed to envision. But there's never a transgression or stepping over of telling someone what to feel. I think that there's extreme discipline in that. You're like, am I supposed to answer a question? It's not really a question here, is it? But I think that allowance for space is something that I think is so unique to this, is that you're encouraging each person on their path to experience that and to be as genuine as possible. And I like that there's no pretense, there's no mirrors, we're barefoot, hooray. In Hawaii we don't think a lot about being barefoot, but I'm sure in some environments being barefoot is still regarded as a radical thing. I remember once visiting someone in Detroit, and at a family gathering there weren't enough chairs, and I sat on the carpet and all holy hell broke out. I mean, those people were so nervous. They were like scrambling and running to the basement and looking for a chair and offering me chairs, because I think in that environment their association that sitting on the floor and also being barefoot was like somehow dirty. And being from Hawaii, I just thought like why you bugging? Like, what's the big deal here? I mean, and I've also felt like it's just a way of expressing that you're literally down to earth if you're sitting on the earth. Sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there, and your group is called Tangents, but it happens. But I really enjoy that. Could you tell us about some of the teachers or the gurus that you have studied with, people
Sure.
that have influenced you on this journey?
Let's see.
We've got some visuals here.
Yeah.
Old
Right
school.
now, I'll show you the two pictures of actually the co-founders of Butoh. The first one is Tatsumi Hijikata. I should say the late Tatsumi Hijikata. And this is quite a famous photo of him biting a watermelon. And on the back here, we have Kazuo Ono. I'm not sure how good that picture is come across, but and he actually just passed away, I think, a couple years ago. He was 103, and even on his sickbed, he was still, moving, even if it was just his arms. So these are the two founders of the dance form. And teachers that actually I have studied with a lot, or are kind of like my guru. There's this one. This is Hiroko Tamano. And then this is me, and this is San Francisco used to hold an annual Butoh festival. This was at the last one they had, which was in 2000, I think, let's see, 5? In a while, but this is her, and her husband, this is her husband, Koichi, and this is me. This, I had traveled with them to Japan in 2002, and we're actually at Hijikata's studio, which was called Asbestos Con. And we actually went up there to kind of do a sort of fundraiser because we were trying to kind of save the studio. But unfortunately, realtors got land, and so it no longer exists. But it was, I think, a very humbling experience for me to actually go there and perform. So those are, and actually the Tamanos are still, they're still performing, they're still teaching. They're in San Francisco. And another, let's see, Butoh master that I've worked with is Katsura Kan. This is him. This is a very old photo. This was in 97 when we, I'm sorry, 95. When
I was going to say 90s because I see ponytails on men.
Yeah, this is my husband who no longer has a ponytail anymore. But this was the first time we got to collaborate with him with a concert here. And there's also many other teachers actually that I've gotten a chance, I think, to work with, as just take workshops, and each one I think is very inspiring. But the Tamanos and Kan are the ones I have actually collaborated with or worked closely with.
Right. Yeah. Ooh, I gotta say sugoi to that. We have to take that small break, but stay tuned because we have so much more to discuss, and there's always the possibility we might need to do 2 shows. It's an interesting topic. This is The Art of Life.
Hello, I'm Martin Despang, and I'm the host together with the one and only Ali Yamashita, and our show is called Urban Transcendence. And Urban Transcendence is about identifying where we have a unique situation of a vibrant city in one of the most beautiful natural environments. So how these two can coincide, sometimes conflict, how they could find reciprocity in the 21st century is what we're excited about. And we're planning on bringing in a diverse body of guests, both from the arts and the science and the established and the wise and the emerging generation. So hope you will join us. We'll always be on Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Thank you.
Yeah, that's
good. We're here at The Art of Life, and my goodness, what we talk about off camera is as fun as what we talk about on camera. So hey, maybe one day you might have to come to the studio and sit in. Our show today is dealing with the art of Butoh, and we have my guru and Butoh aficionado extraordinaire, all these superlatives she would never say herself, Laurie Otani, sharing with us insights as an instructor, as a student, as a person who feels and creates and all of those good things. I wanted to ask you what you perceive as the internal and the external? Because I know in class we use a lot of these prompts about points of focus or sensations, and what is this relationship? Is it something that changes with every movement or experience, or is there anything that's fixed? I'm curious about the relationship of the internal versus the external.
In class, when I give an image or I speak about seeing it internally, what I'm trying to do is get the student to kind of visually imagine or see the inner housings actually of their body, like the nerves, the cells, the bones, to actually try to get these little intricate details on the interior housing of the body to actually activate and move.
Yeah.
You know, to see the image actually working through the inner structure. So when I refer to the internally, that's usually what I strive for. And as far as external, that would refer to the environment that you're moving in. You know, can go from the person standing next to you, what you're wearing, so it's everything that's outside. And for me, Butoh is really interesting in the fact where these two should be working together at the same time. So the image somehow, to me, gets deeper. It's not just superficial or someone mimicking a movement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, when you were speaking, I was thinking about the things that we do in class, and what surprises me is we might go, well, there's a form, there's a structure, there's a practice that's established. And some people might say, oh my goodness, how can you do those things over and over again? But to me, that seems quite normal. That's what you do for piano or learning a car or a language. You know, you go through forms. And yet, even though in theory you're essentially doing the same form, it's never the same. And it's in those moments of stillness, you feel like you're moving. And in those moments of movement, you feel stillness. And it continually fascinates me. I find that I know I'm still there, I'm listening, and obviously I have to stay present at what's being asked of us. However, I'm amazed at the backstory. I'm sure it's different for everybody, but the things that just come flooding up that are unearthed, so many memories from my childhood. I don't know what it is about being in your class, but when I'm in class, this is all new to her because I never talk about this, even though I love to talk, but I'm amazed at how many things bubble up from my childhood. The most random things from Chinese school, memories of riding the bus, fragrances of being in the backyard, you know, after I'd come home from school, and I would just kind of putt around in the yard and lift up rocks and look what was there, or things that people have said to me. And it's really amazing that this, for whatever reason, that this is what is unearthed. I'm not sure what the purpose is. I don't necessarily question it. I just kind of enjoy it. It floats by, kind of like if you see a plastic bag or a feather passing in the breeze, and then it just kind of dissipates, and then I don't know where it goes. I don't even know what brings it up.
I think it's with the continual practice, it is taking off all these layers.
Yeah.
And you know, however long you've lived on this earth, you have all this body memory embedded in your internal housing. And so I think as you move and as you practice, somehow it starts welling up. And to me, that's another very interesting part. For me, when I first started dancing Butoh, I enjoyed it as far as I felt it got me kind of out of my shell, and I wasn't afraid to, move or be in front of an audience. So I think that part, it helped me initially. But as I started practicing more and more, the same thing happened to me where all these memories would come up and things, and I just really needed to go back to my roots, and I really wanted to delve in and find out where the form came from. And so it's interesting. It always does that to people.
It's almost like returning to a space or time. This is my interpretation of it. I'm a daughter of Freud. We have the same birthday. But it's like a time and space before you are taught or instructed what is appropriate and how you should move your body, whether that's a practice or a form, or, you know, ladies sit with their legs closed, or don't whistle at the dinner table, or all of these different constructs that are placed upon us or that we seek out by studying something. We're then shaping our body. I mean, our body becomes like its own little bonsai, right? We try to fit these forms, and then when we come back to these very organic shapes, I find that that's what I'm remembering, perhaps, is like maybe a time before you had all of these different rules that were kind of placed upon you. Whether you don't really have a choice in the matter. When you're a kid, you kind of have to just go along with it. Okay, I'm getting into the heavy stuff because I think a lot of people think they are very aware of the world of duality, right? Do you think that Butoh attempts to place emphasis and highlight duality, or would it be the absence of duality, just the essence of being? Or does it kind of navigate those two, or negotiate between those two different kinds of approaches, which is a dualistic question in itself?
Yeah. I think it does like navigate between the two. I think it does, a lot of the imagery does talk a lot about duality. For instance, an example, I haven't gone through these exercises with you yet, but we will be. But you know, one image, you could say a floating stone. Obviously, a stone doesn't really float; it sinks. But you know,
unless it's at LACMA.
You give images like this, or images that kind of don't make sense in a way, but I think what it is it's trying to pull the body, instead of just on one certain viewpoint or perspective, it's trying to take the body in many directions at the same time. You know, to pull, so the movement, I think, becomes more authentic, you know, more raw and primal.
I wanted to ask you about improvisation, because we kind of slightly went close to those concepts about the idea of allowing for space for something to maybe be responsive, or to let it be organic, to happen of the moment. Is there a set way? Does Butoh as a form tend to lean towards improvisation? And there's many, this is what fascinated me. I had no idea. There's many kinds of improvisation. There's mapped improvisations. There's like little, maybe ideas where you put a little roadmap in your mind, like this is what I'd like to say. You can set your intention. And then there's strict, straight choreography where you are determined to, from start to finish, you know what is going to happen. What's the span of forms within Butoh, or is there a desired form? So for example, like the original, if I may use that, Argentine tango is an improvisational dance form. You do all this training and you learn all these steps and these different forms and you understand the music, but the idea is that you can be responsive in that moment, and it's improvisational. That's not to say that there aren't clearly choreographed tango dances, there are, but when it started out it was improvisational social dance.
I think that would go again back to each individual you know, sensei or teacher or artist. Some strive to, you know, just basically pure improvisational. Some do a lot heavy on choreography. But for myself, I think, or I strive to actually have the two. So I guess it's back to the duality thing again, where there is a rigid form, but also there's the improvisation. And I think that might be a little bit harder to achieve because, you know, like how, I'm gonna say I lost my words.
That's okay.
But yeah, I enjoy having, not, I mean, the improvisation, I think I use that in class with imagery because I think it helps the student to grow and to try to get the body to be freer. And then with the rigid form or the training, that helps to, I guess, tune the body physically.
Right.
So you're in kind of the middle space, or you're able to do both at once. I don't know if that's answering
It's like
your
someone who knows
question.
Cantonese and Mandarin. Yeah. Would you say that as a choreographer, when you do something, do you strive to have a narrative? I think that I have found that people, a lot of times, unless you're doing a dance that's perceived as entertainment, if there isn't a narrative, they get kind of spooked. I think that this is something that generally kind of plagues contemporary modern dance, is that people are always saying, well, what does it mean, and what's the story, and I don't understand it. And when I hear that, I understand that that's just a fear. Like, when you don't understand something, it doesn't necessarily mean you don't relate to it, you just don't even know what it is. So maybe the first defense mechanism is to be afraid of it, or then unfortunately maybe they slag on it. Oh, we hope not. I actually kind of like it when I don't understand something, because I look at it as an opportunity to ask questions and try to understand it, or ask the source. When you choreograph, do you look and lean towards a narrative, or is it kind of, it depends on the piece and the dancers and the event itself that you're creating for?
Yeah, I think it probably would depend on all of those. Like for an event or if they want a specific thing, I guess we would have to do it that way. But for my own work, when I do choreograph, it's funny because I'll do a whole lot of research, like dig through all the layers and try to get as much information as I can, and then I'll map it out. But I always, like I said, I want to have things that are set, but then I always want the performer or the person that I'm, choreographing for to bring their history into it also. So, there's room for play within this structure. So, yeah, I don't necessarily like it to be totally choreographed. As far as the set lighting, the technical aspects, or that part of the piece, basically I want it pretty much set.
I will say and interject. For any performers, if you think you can just say, oh, well, do what you think is best, because I've done that, you just have no idea what's going to come out. You think you're being accommodating and easygoing, and then someone gets a little crazy on the light board, or you're dancing in darkness, and then there's like no video to be seen because there wasn't enough light, and you're like, ooh. So yeah, I get that. Got to map it out. I wanted to, if we could, flip over on the green screen to some of the images. So I did a little reconnaissance and a little research on this thing called the internet, and pulled some pictures off. And my apologies in advance if there are images that you're not fond of, but we use this as the promo teaser to get people piqued and interested, and my goodness, everyone was like clicking like and giving their 2 cents, and people crawled out of the woodwork that I didn't even know bothered to look at the Facebook page. So this is you. Tell us about this striking image and performance.
This actually was a construction site in Kapolei, and I think this was, I don't remember what year it was, but it was a construction site where down in Kapolei, I guess now they have maybe, I don't know if it's a hotel or condos, but it was a site that was going to be built, but then it was kind of put on the side for a while. And this photograph is taken by a good friend of mine, Franco Salmoraghi.
The master.
Yes, the
Yeah.
master. And he and I think a friend had informed him about this site that he thought would make a really nice photo shoot up. So we just went down there one day, and then I climbed up on these pillars, these concrete pillars, and then just started moving, and we got some very striking shots.
I think the credit on the photo they captioned it. I'm not sure if this was captioned by either of the artists, but it said, Lori Ohtani dancing in a concrete garden. But when I look at it right now, the image that popped to mind is when you go to cemeteries in Japan, and the headstones they tend to be vertical, and you have hundreds of these headstones all lined up. That's just what came to mind. My 2 cents for what it's worth. It's probably worth 2 cents. But maybe they're copper pennies. You can only hope.
So actually, going back to your comment about impermanence, actually this site no longer exists.
It's probably maybe it turned into a hotel or something like that.
I think actually it is.
We can only hope for the frozen work on rail. I went there. Alrighty, we have another image in the mix. You didn't supply this, but I did. I just love this.
That's Sankaijuku.
Let's see. I'm going to do a little time travel here with my bookmarker. And good. You good. And this was the homage to prehistory. But I wanted people to see that Butoh dancers are not always in states of undress. So I don't want people to be afraid. Don't be afraid. I love this conch and this mudra. It's really striking.
The Sankaijuku they're now based in France, in Europe.
Wow. Sugoi. We have another image. Let's see what's in the mix. Okay, I hope this is your work. I couldn't imagine that there's lots of Laurie Otanis out there. But it was a sketchbook, and it looks kind of like a wrinkly brain-like mass. Are these yours?
Oh, yes,
your illustration?
Yes.
I told you this is going to be This Is Your Life.
Sorry, I don't usually wear my glasses, so I can't see that pretty well. But I think there's an art project called the Sketchbook Project, and I just happened to see it on the internet, and you can participate, and they give you themes, and then you just draw away. And
I think it's really cool.
So
because
this one I think was the first one I did, and my theme that was given to me was nightmare.
Your brain kind of looks like an ume, if I may say so, or some crack seed. A lot of dancers are two-dimensional artists as well. So Shen Wei comes to mind. I mean, I'm sure there are many artists. I like to draw and paint as well. I'm not going to subject you to any of that stuff now. But what do you find if there is a link between the ability to map out an idea or to draw something, the transference on paper? Does that help and aid you or inspire you in dance and in movement?
Yes, I think a lot. And the funny thing was that one of, going back to the first lineage of Butoh dancers, a lot of them were visual artists.
Okay.
And what's interesting to me, when you have that background of a visual artist, somehow what draws you to this dance form is basically the imagery, because it is so striking. Somehow
it hits
a very deep nerve. And yes, it really helps me a lot. I usually, I like to draw, I try to draw daily, just sketch. I like to contour, draw a lot. I think the imagery or just mapping something out or just a color, everything just really helps to, blossom the choreography or the imagery.
Gives it another layer. We have an image of the Three Muses. Yes. Laurie Otani, This Is Your Life. And referencing what you said about the visual nature and that a lot of these dancers come from visual media and work into dance, I think that something that's very arresting about Butoh is that there is a great seemingly understanding of form, of texture, the use of color. And I say that respectfully because sometimes when I see companies, I'm kind of shocked sometimes how they outfit themselves. And there seems to be like an amazing disconnect between the movement and the presentation, and then the costuming doesn't seem to enhance the visual in a way that would really get the most out of it. You know, it's not about being superficial. Playing, giving attention and mind to details of what you're wearing, or how it moves, or how it enhances, or even maybe minimizes what you're doing, are important parts. Tell us about this, because I mean, clearly we've got this great contrast of the red and the white, but what's this all about?
This was a piece that I choreographed, and the title of it was Equinox. And it was for a trio of women dancers. I think I'm the furthest on the left, and the other two dancers are Rose Bent, who's actually now in Portland, and Sugumi Iwasaki. And both of them actually have a background in visual art also. So they, came as students, and they were, actually just drawn to the form too by the visual, images of Butoh. And the piece was about, I guess, the human form and technology, how that kind of is we're thrown into this whole world of technology and technical things, and how that can sort of invade our body or turn us into just mere, images you see on a screen where all feeling and emotions are lost. So that's kind of what the piece was about. The red costumes, I think, basically I was thinking of humans, so maybe refers to our veins or blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I was curious about the makeup. It's subtle, but to me, I was wondering, the little eyebrows, are those like the little moth, like the makeup in No, there's the classic woman's face. That was the image or the prompt?
I think we were, or I was thinking of the mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So just to have that little highlight in there.
There's and here's another group photo from back in the day. Who's that reading that newspaper?
This actually, I think it was captioned wrong. This is actually a friend of mine. We collaborated together, and this was actually her piece, Naoko Maishiba, where she is based now in Baltimore. And so this was her piece that we performed called Little Match Girl. And this was done at the HPR studio. Yeah.
That looks like Atherton.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Atherton, yeah.
I'm curious how, what you've seen, the changes within the community over the time that you've been involved with it. I certainly know in the 20 years of belly dance, gosh, a lot of things have changed. And maybe people think that's of interest because they think it's like, oh, the world's oldest dance form. Not necessarily so. How has Butoh changed in the time that you've been involved? The evolution of it, the community, the technology that's used to transmit ideas?
I think it's changed as far as, I think it's probably in the U.S. it's probably gotten a little bit more mainstream, where before it was more, underground. There's a lot more companies around, and basically, I guess for me, I really like to connect the roots or the history as well as the present, So for me, I hope that the roots don't get lost.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the Butoh that's done now is bad and wrong or not good. I mean, everybody brings their own personality to it, but I think it's probably I think maybe even hula's probably on this precipice too, where it's kind of trying to find a new way to add and express or to move to the next step. Yeah.
I think, and I would say the same thing of Oriental dance and Raksharki. It's like, a lot of times I think people define a lineage to describe a continuation of an individual or a group's work whether that's your halal or what you've been trained in. But I think it's important maybe to open that scope and understand that there's a collective lineage within a dance form. So to somehow, to not be aware of that, you don't have to pay homage every time, but I think it's something that's essential to that creative process, and it's a respectful thing to do, because it gives you that foundation to build from.
Yeah.
What she said. I couldn't agree more. For our viewers out there that want to be in the know, how can they get in touch with you? What would be the easiest way? What's your preferred way, I should say?
Probably an email. My email is Lori, Lori, at Butoh, Butoh.net. And if they email me, I'll be more than happy to send them information on the classes. The classes are held on Sundays from 5 to 7 at the Japanese Cultural Center at the Kenshikan Dojo. And I think the classes are also listed on their website too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any projects on the horizon for you, or things that we can look forward to, or is it all in the incubation process?
Some in the incubation, but I do have a group of visual artists that I often work with, and we have actually a show coming up in October, later this year. We were doing a show on the series of elements. So the first one we did was called Earth, and this next series will be on water, and it'll be at the Koa Gallery at KCC campus.
Ooh, October. We'll have to bring you back so we can interview you folks about that as well. Anything you'd like to share with our captive audience?
Let's see, is there anything?
It's all interesting. Maybe we could just pull in closely on your top image here, because it's beautiful.
Shall I?
Yeah.
This was another image that was taken at the same photo shoot in that construction area.
Super. Well, Laurie, it is always a pleasure, and I'm so happy you could make time for us today. And keep us posted with all the future events up and coming. This is The Art of Life. Join us next Friday, 2 to 3. You know where we'll be. Hope you'll be with us. I'm Willow Chang Leon. Aloha.